So should we start? It's 7:05.
Yes, and we've got a few people here. Okay, so we'll start then, and we'll clue people in if they join later. So thanks everyone. Thank you for joining on time and joining us at all. My name is Akshay, and along with Niketa and Abrar, who are also on the call, we make up the evaluation circle at the Story of Space. So the way the call will go is that broadly I'm going to give a quick intro to why we're doing the Story of Space evaluation bit, why we're doing it, how we're broadly the framework of how we're thinking about it, and then Abrar will share his screen and show you the toolkit or the guide that we're using, that we've created for y'all. And in the end, we'll try and time things in a way that we have about 10 to 15 minutes for questions and comments. I'm just going to start now with the intro. So as you know that the first edition, so just another thing, just request everyone to mute their mics, unless you have a question, in which case, feel free to interrupt. But until then, just if everybody could mute them, especially if you're in traffic. So as you know, the first edition of the festival was called The Story of Light, and it happened in 2015, where we started work in mid 2014. The first edition of the festival, we didn't actually have any evaluation framework, but broadly for us, the metrics for success were the fact that it happened at all. The second bit being that we were able to bring together, just an amazing group of people, both as participants and, to present installations, performances, talks, workshops. But also, in the way that it happened, there wasn't any existing organization that conducted the festival, that put the festival together. It was a kind of coming together of a whole bunch of really passionate people, and most of us that were involved in the Story of Light did it, all of us, I guess. We were all volunteering our time and our effort and our expertise. I wasn't very involved in a lot of things in the first edition. I was only doing some travel and logistics, and generally being a sounding board for Jaya and Nash. When they started thinking about, and one big point of the success was also the creation of the Story of Foundation, and the Story of Foundation is now taking that forward with the Story of Space. And when conversation started around the Story of Space in early 2016, very, very early on, Jaya and I started talking about how we would evaluate the festival. And, that was a really great thing, because far too often evaluation is something that comes as an afterthought. It comes at a point where the project or the projects have been already thought through to some degree. But being able to start thinking of evaluation when we were building the foundation for Story of Space was a really powerful exercise, because now the evaluation was really aligned with the objectives and vice versa. So, there's an interplay between that. That conversation's been going on since early last year, and it's solidified over time. Like all of you guys filled out the form, the additions to the form around having you think about what the learning angle would be for the festival. Sorry, Pushpanjali, could you please mute your mic? There's a bit of disturbance and feedback. No, it's okay. Thanks. And there was that now we've gained a lot of momentum, working on the evaluation, and we were able to bring on board Niketa, who has a very solid background and experience in working on impact evaluation, especially with social enterprises, and Abrar, who comes from has experience as having been part of an artist team at Story of Light, and then also now he brings in a considerable amount of experience with designing interactive experiences, design, and also user research and human centered design. And so that broadly is the team, the three of us. And we've got a couple of advisors in Nilanjana and Madhulika, who are both senior art educators, and they're helping us kind of structure how we think about evaluation at Story of Space. So just to give you an idea of the framework for the Story of Space evaluation, we've broadly divided it into two parts. One is, thinking about the evaluation of the entire festival as a whole, and that goes into looking at fairly specific quantitative metrics of how many people attended, the demographics of the people who attended, also then going into trying to understand the effect that attending the festival had on people's knowledge, their understanding of the interconnectedness of the world. And you've read some of these objectives on the website and otherwise. Um, Thinking about the festival evaluation also gives us the opportunity to try and understand the effect that the festival has had on very specific audiences. So one of the teams at the Story of Space, part of the Story of Space team, is working on outreach, but with a very specific focus on the schools in Goa that we're partnering with. And they're going to be engaging with the teachers, and ensuring that the students who come, as they'll be coming to the Story of Space as a field excursion from their school. We're going to be working with that team, trying to understand what were the students thinking before the festival, what was their experience at the festival. And because it's a very specific group that we have access to even after the festival, we'll be able to go back to them 2 months later, 4 months later, 6 months later, and see, whether some of the concepts that we've talked about have stuck, if there have been changes in their attitudes and their behavior. So that, in a nutshell, is the festival evaluation uh, idea. Honestly, we're still working our way through that a little bit, because the team has been focused more on this second part, which is where you come in. And this is the self-evaluation plan or the project evaluation plan. The idea with the second bit, the self-evaluation plan, is that one way of doing evaluation is that the team doing the evaluation stands on the outside, waits for an activity to happen and monitors it, and then evaluates it at the end with an eye on improvement for the next edition. But we're on the inside, and what we are hoping to do is share with you a set of tools and guides, so that we, in this process, in which you guys are thinking through your pieces, they might be installations, workshops, performances, or presentations. We want you to kind of try and iterate based on the learning outcomes that are the objective of us doing the Story of Space, right? And to do that, we've developed a kind of a simple toolkit which exists as a set of Google Docs. And our objective is that you access those Google Docs, you understand what our point of view on learning outcomes is, and then we work together. You along with the evaluation circle and your curator, we kind of help you co-create the piece that you're working on so that the learning objectives and the learning outcomes are embedded fairly deeply in your piece. And also, if there is a way to evaluate the effect of your piece, we're able to do that. So to give you an example, the same example I've been using for the other two webinars as well, one of the pieces that I am curating is called, it explores the idea or the question of whether we are alone in the universe. And the team of Jazila, Kalyani, and Rucha, who are working on that, they're going to be exploring two ideas from physics. One being Drake's equation, which broadly is an equation which brings in variables that help us, see the sheer number of probable planets that could hold life. And it's an astoundingly large number. And the second concept that they'll be exploring is Fermi's paradox. And the two kind of go together, Drake's and Fermi's, in the way that if there's such a sheer number of planets that could hold life, why have we not made contact with with extraterrestrial life yet? And it suggests, it postulates certain hypotheses of why that has happened. So their piece, in a interactive installation, walks an audience member through that, through these two theories. Um, so how do you evaluate something like that? What we've been working with, an idea that we've been working with, is that imagine a single audience member walks up to the installation. Before they enter the room where that is happening, they have to answer a simple question. Do they think whether we're alone in the universe? And they pick up a sticker that either is yes or no, signaling what they believe, and they carry that sticker with them through the installation. And at the end, we ask them again, now what do you think? Are we alone in the universe? And they stick that sticker on either yes or no. Now that allows us to do a couple of things. One is we can see, what people started out believing. We can see what people, believe at the end of that installation or at the end of that experience. But by having that sticker right through, you're also able to see the number of people who changed their mind. Now, if we're able to do that for all the audience members, that's a lot of very, very interesting data. What we're also going to be doing is whoever is manning the installation will also speak to a certain sample of a certain number of the audience coming through, and ask them why they changed their mind or why they didn't change their mind. Did seeing this just strengthen their point of view? And have a conversation around that. And so then there's an interplay between the quantitative and the qualitative. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking about your own installations, and you're realizing that you can't have such a clear quantitative metric, and we totally understand that. Are we alone in the universe is a fairly simple question with you can force a binary there, a yes or a no. With a lot of with many rather of the installations or performances, that's not going to be possible. There may not be a clear question, but the canvas is fairly open in terms of what you measure and how you measure it and the change you're seeking to create. So that like really quickly, not that quickly, but is the nutshell of how we're thinking about evaluation at the Story of Space. I'm going to hand over to Abrar now who's going to be sharing his screen and a link. So Abrar, if you can just share a link to the Google Drive, um, then share your screen and we can get going on the demo.
Akshay, I'll just jump right in. I just wanted to
Please.
add something to what you mentioned. So Akshay talked about evaluating the piece, and he gave one example which we could implement in the festival, and it was easy for us to find out that change. But then it's possible that most of the change that you're thinking of creating within your audience's mind may not happen within those 10 minutes that they interact with your installation. So some of this change could even happen as an afterthought, once they've gone home or they've come across that certain incident in their life. So what I'm trying to say here is to not restrict yourself in thinking about the change only happening within that time frame, but to think of it beyond that. So, what would change in that person over a period of, say, a month after the festival and a year, or even long term, So it's important to look at that start state and end state of that participant, of the visitor who's coming and visiting your installation. That end state could be somewhere in the future. It doesn't have to be when they exit your installation. So just wanted to leave that thought as well. Thank you, Akshay.
Thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Nikita. And hi, everyone. So Akshay, I think, has given quite a bit of an introduction. So I'm just going to kind of get to it. So if you see the chat window right there, I've shared a link to this toolkit that we spoke about. And maybe I can give you all like about, 5 minutes to sort of just go through it, familiarize yourselves with the files. And I'm also going to share my screen, and then we can kind of have a walk through the files.
So I would just suggest everybody open up all the documents, and just so that we know that it's working for everyone. So Abrar is sharing his screen now.
Do you have my screen? Do you all have my screen?
Yes, Abrar, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So I'll just take some time to go through the files, and then we'll get going.
Also, while Abrar is explaining, if you feel like you don't want to interrupt him, feel free to drop a question in the chat. And Nikita and I are watching the chat, and we'll answer your queries.
Chat screen.
Where is the chat screen, you guys?
If you click on participants.
Right.
And okay, need to check.
Yeah, but we haven't been able to find the link. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Have you guys found it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you.
I hope everybody's got the link. Abrar, I guess we can start.
Yeah, no. What you can see on my screen right now is essentially this folder, this self-evaluation sort of toolkit that we've put together, and these are essentially the files that you're gonna interact with when it comes to this toolkit. So I'm going to take you all through a quick overview of each of these files, and then we'll get into a detailed sort of look at each one of them. Yeah. So you have your README file, which is essentially your go-to file in every sense. It just introduces you to the skate and what's there in it, and it just links you to each of these files. So it's kind of your starting point. Your self-evaluation guidelines 1.1 and 1.2, the worksheet, are, well, I mean, you can say the main aspect of this toolkit. It basically gives you a set of sort of reflection exercises. So it's like a handy tool for you guys to just think back on who your target audience is and what is the change that you are trying to create through your piece, right? So what is the impact that you are trying to have, and then just reflecting back on what is the strategy you're going to take to have this change happen. Or I'm sure you'll already have a strategy in place. So how you're going to iterate the strategy to sort of meet these goals of these broader goals of the story of foundation, right? Which is essentially this whole idea of giving out opportunities for informal learning. So these two files, 1.1, 1.2, are going to take you through all of these exercises to think through all of this and also think about evaluating audiences. We're going to get into this as well. File number 2, evaluate my audience examples, is essentially a place which is, it's an empty file at this point of time, but we are going to populate it with examples of other projects who have figured out their evaluation mechanism. So for example, what Akshay mentioned about Are We Alone in the Universe, right? So the entire mechanism of using stickers to kind of get data about what people think about Are We Alone in the Universe. So examples of that sort, we're going to put together in this file, the idea being, ideas will just lead to inspiration, and we just want to create this sort of atmosphere of cross-pollination of ideas and collaboration, and just, get everyone sort of figuring out a kick-ass evaluation plan. Now the skills and knowledge support is a database that we are going to populate as well, that you all are going to populate hopefully, wherein we are going to have a list of all of you folks, like your names, your email addresses, and basically some skills or knowledge areas that you all are really well versed with and are ready to share that with the rest of the participants, with the rest of the Story of Space community. Or if you all are looking for certain help with certain skills, maybe you all are looking for some help with programming or some help with electronics, or I don't know, maybe you want to know more about quantum physics. So this is hopefully going to be that file where you can just put out your requests, and the story of participants will be able to see it, the team will be able to see it. And again, this is something that we have put out there so that we can have this collaboration going right from the get-go. And finally, your FAQs document is a place which is also not populated at this point in time, but as and when questions come out of these webinars, which have already come out, and over time, when you all comment on these files, and please do, like if you're not confused about anything at any point of time, just put a comment over there and we're going to get back to you. And we're going to compile all of that into the FAQs doc so that, just to make things as clear as possible. So I'm going to quickly go to the README file, and then we're going to go through each one of them. So what we've introduced over here is something that Akshay already took you all through, the overarching goals of the Story of Foundation and the Story of Space Festival, which is, this entire aspect of interdisciplinary informal learning. And that's something that we would like you all to, constantly reflect on at every point of time, and sort of try and work towards having your projects align with this sort of bigger vision, in a sense, and why are we evaluating? Again, just to sort of reiterate, because it'll just help us know whether the festival is doing what it's claiming to do, right? I mean, we want to create these avenues. Are we being able to do it? If we are, then how good are we at it? What can we do to improve? And other than that, I guess for each participant as well, right? I mean, isn't it just kind of good to know that all this effort that you've put in, like what's the impact of it? What are you getting out of it? Which is why we thought it's good to have this sort of framework to figure out how we're going to evaluate, and at the same time, we are just sort of through these processes improving our final output of the festival, right? So it's just improving the quality of the giveaway at the festival. And who should be using this toolkit? Of course, the participants, and your coordinating curators are going to be sort of coordinating with you all on this front and sort of helping you all out. So, I mean, there's no reason to get overwhelmed. Plus, you have the evaluation team that you can get in touch with at any point of time. But yeah, this toolkit is essentially for you, the participants. And to boil it down to two key things that this toolkit is doing. One is it's giving you a set of tools to sort of just identify and sort of define your goals and your strategy, and to figure out a way to evaluate whether your strategy is working. And number two, it's a platform, an initial platform to get the collaboration going, to get the peer reviews going, to get the feedback going, and just having, a sort of cooperative environment. So now I'll take you through each one of these files that I described earlier. The first one being the self-evaluation guidelines and worksheet. So the README file, you can directly link yourself to any one of these files. You've got these big buttons over there. So I'm just going to directly go to the guidelines. And again, so a set of reflection-based exercises. And what are these exercises doing? To boil it down to 5 core things that we're doing over here, it's essentially identifying, okay, who is your target audience? What is the change that you're trying to create, or what is the impact that you want to have on this audience, and how you're going to go about creating this change? What is that bridge that's going to allow you to sort of reach your target audience in the way that you intend to? And then, of course, the evaluation mechanism, which is something you're going to be working very closely with your curator as well as us, and figuring out what is the best sort of non-intrusive, creative, and a meaningful way to gather data about the effect that you've had on your audiences. And lastly, the environmental impact of your project. So what sort of waste are you creating, water, energy, just thinking through all those aspects as well, right? And for helping you out through these guidelines, we've put together a evaluation worksheet, which it would be nice while you'll go through these guidelines to have this worksheet next to you all, because I'll just show you all what it is. It's just a bunch of empty boxes for you to sort of fill in, having these questions that I took you all through earlier. Who's your target audience? What's the change you're trying to create? So it's essentially a bunch of empty boxes for you to go about filling in while you're going through your guidelines, right? So, when you're thinking about your target audience, it's just useful to sort of note it down, to articulate it, because it just helps making things a lot clearer for you. And even for us, if you share these documents with us as well. But yeah, another thing to clarify here is, do not look at this as some sort of assignment, or some sort of homework that you have to do. It's more as a set of guidelines for you to sort of articulate things better for yourself. You don't really have to use this worksheet. You can just probably take the entire essence of this worksheet and, probably scribble on a blackboard or use stickies on your wall. It's totally up to you. This is just something to get you started. So to elaborate on each of these things, right? So the exercise 1, which is who is my target audience? It's about you figuring out. So are you creating an installation, a talk, performance, etc.? Are you doing that for kids, or is it for a general audience, like probably people of all ages? Is it for specific school students? Is it for specific communities? What is it? And again, you don't have to be restricted to these options that we've given you here. You can go ahead and write down anything else as well. And once you figured out your target audience, then the next question that comes is, what is the impact that you're trying to have on these audiences, right? And for assessing this, we've used something called the generic learning outcomes. And it's a nicely articulated set of spaces in which one could identify learning. And they are right here in front of you. So basically, there's knowledge and understanding. There's skills, there's attitudes and values, your perception towards things, your perception towards people, tolerance, etc. Enjoyment, of course, inspiration and creativity, and activity, behavior, progression. So this is something that Nikita was talking about earlier, right? The entire idea of what will people do after having experienced your installation or your piece at Story of Space, or after having experienced Story of Space as a whole. What will they do later on in their lives? Are they going to become a part of something, of some sort of subject that they discovered at Story of Space? Is it going to sort of change their perception towards certain things? What's going to happen? So that's one of the just sort of projecting into the future, and it's always good to consider that as well. So as I told you, right, knowledge and understanding, we've got a bunch of check boxes here. So you could use these. Again, feel free to go beyond them, but you could use these check boxes to see that, okay, is my installation trying to make sense out of something? Probably not. Is it deepening understanding about, let's just say quantum physics, because that's stuck in my head right now. but is it deepening my understanding about quantum physics? Maybe. So I'm probably going to check that, put it into the worksheet. I mean, feel free. About skills, is my installation sort of teaching me how to I don't know, use a telescope? Is it teaching me how to use modular synthesizers, or I don't know, put together a few wires and make a little DIY microscope, for example, out of Arduino, whatever. I mean, is it teaching me something of that sort, or is it about communication skills, social skills? What is it? Or it's probably about creating empathy, you know, or changing my attitude towards my environment or towards the people around me. And in addition to all of that, we also don't want it to be something that's really boring and technical, right? So I mean, it's pretty essential to think about this entire aspect of having fun. You know, what about your piece is going to create this aspect of fun, you know, create this aspect of wonder, this sort of magical feeling in a sense. And so it's important sort of think through these aspects as well. And as I mentioned earlier, activity behavior progression is about what people do, you know, later on in their lives, or I mean, later on in their lives, but immediately after the festival as well. Or do they become a part of something? Is there any way for you to observe these changes that might happen in your audiences? Again, certain areas for you to think about. And so that's exercise number 2. And once you've identified these sort of generic learning outcomes, which I mean, if you were to use this worksheet, you'd probably write them down here. Then the next thing to do is figure out how are you going to go about creating this change, right? You must have said that I am creating something to improve communication skills, or you know, I'm trying to change people's perception about something. But how are you going to go about doing that? Okay, like on a higher level, your piece is the how, right? Your piece is the instrument that's going to have this change happen. But over here, we're asking you to sort of take a step back and think about it a level deeper. So like a couple of examples that we've given over here. So if you're trying to change perception of a certain group of people, right? How are you going to go about doing that? That would probably mean you getting a deeper understanding of your target audience's psyche. So that's something that you would probably have to get going and get into some research about. It would also mean that you have to communicate your ideas and philosophy in a medium or a tone of voice that is sort of very accessible and familiar, you know, to your target audience in a sense. So that's something to think about over there. If you're talking about boosting communication skills, for example, how are you going to do that? You're probably going to have to create a safe, non-judgmental space. You're going to have to use a tone of voice that's really approachable. So, you know, you want to start thinking about these finer aspects of the interactions. I mean, not just the interactions, but these finer aspects about your piece, and start articulating those in relation to these generic learning outcomes that you've probably tick marked earlier, right? So, I mean, just to make the process sort of easier for you all, you know, just articulate everything step by step. And after that, you have the fourth part, which is how you're going to go about measuring this change, right? Which is essentially your audience evaluation. You do everything that you've done, and you're fairly certain that it's kind of working out and you're communicating well enough, but you don't know for sure, right? I mean, either tested it on a sort of test group, or you've put down a certain bunch of methodologies to evaluate whether or what you're trying to communicate is even getting through. So, I mean, there are a bunch of ways to do this, and you're probably going to be working closely with your curator on this front, as well as the evaluation team. So, yeah, once again, nothing to get overwhelmed about. But so certain processes are, you know, thinking about, again, taking Akshay's example into consideration, thinking about the before and after state of mind of your audiences, right? Is there any way to collect some sort of data from your audiences before they experience your piece? And is there any way to collect data after they experience your piece, and then sort of compare that data? Is there a way you can approach your audiences, have a chat with them, get a better understanding about what they got out of it? Is there a way to collect quantitative data? Probably you can look for key indicators, you know, in terms of their interaction with your installation, especially in the case of installations, you know, I mean, maybe your installation is about listening to certain audio clips, or viewing certain things, or pushing certain buttons, or pulling certain rods. And maybe all of these contribute to a certain sort of learning, right? So is there any way to sort of observe this and track it and note it down and get a better understanding of your audience's interactions with your piece, right? So these are things to think about when it comes to how do you go about measuring this change. And and if you'd like to go even deeper, there's something called the theory of change. There's a link to it over here. It's also a little canvas to think along these lines of audience evaluation. So you can totally go ahead and do that if you want to get into a level of complexity slightly deeper, I guess. And this is also something, the lean experimentation is also something that we would really urge you all to do. I think it's really fun. It's really useful. What you're doing is you're testing your prototype, right? You're building a prototype. Maybe your prototype is a talk, but you're getting together, let's say, a group of friends, or when you're here at the residency, the participants, you're just getting together a bunch of people and you're testing your piece. You're testing your talk, you're testing your performance, you're testing a small rudimentary version of your installation, for example, and you're getting third person's views on it, and that really helps you break out of this sort of space that you get into when you're working on something constantly. It just helps you sort of detach and get a bigger picture view of what is working and what is not. So, I mean, it would be really nice if you could just go ahead and, do these small experiments. And lastly, the environmental impact that we spoke about. Again, a bunch of questions for you all to think about. You think about it, you write it down, but it's always good to sort of consider these questions, like, is your piece consuming water? How much of water is it consuming? What's the sort of effect you're having on the environment around you? What about the waste? Can you reuse waste materials? Are you creating a lot of waste? How are you going to dispose it? And also energy, right? How much energy is your piece sucking in? And is there any way you can sort of cut on that? So yeah, certain questions to again think through. And and that's essentially these reflection exercises that we spoke about. Once again, I'm going to take you through the worksheet. I mean, there's nothing much, as I showed you all. You can see it right here. What we're going to do is, I mean, you'll already have viewing access. If at some point of time you'll want to, comment on these files, if you have any questions about anything, just sort of request commenting access, and we're going to give you that. Akshay is going to give you that. And regarding this particular file, if you're filling it, we would ask you all to sort of just download this onto your computers, or just make a copy of it to your Google Drive, and then just go about filling it. I'll quickly take you all through the.
Sorry, just a quick one for people who are not very familiar with Google Docs. The way that you request access is that in the top left corner on the toolbar, you'll see it says View Only. If you click on the View Only, there should be something which says Request Edit Access. You might need to sign in to whatever account that you use with Google Drive. So once you do that, you can request edit access, and then just give me a day or two and I'll give you commenting access on all these documents. The reason that we really would like you guys to have commenting access is that instead of asking questions to us individually, I urge you to ask the questions on the document itself, because then everybody learns together. I just wanted to add that bit. Back to you, Abrar.
Cool.
Abrar,
so,
I'll just jump right in before you exit this document. So I wanted to just stress on the fact that the self-evaluation worksheet is just a guideline, and you could, it's not necessary that you take a printout and you fill in the boxes as they are to begin with, So, but maybe this could be your summary document. But to begin with, you could, brainstorm on a whiteboard. You can go ahead and make post-its. You can use, human-centered design approaches, and you can consider all of those. This is just a sort of a guideline to help you get started and help you think in a way that, we'd ideally like you to for your piece. And then, of course, we'd appreciate it, the evaluation team, and of course, for the curators and for the foundation, we'd appreciate it if you could come back and fill in your thoughts here, your summary here, and share those. And we'll also be having a platform for you to share those post-its and the other bits that you create. And Abrar will get into the details of it. So just wanted to stress on that. Thank you, Abrar. Over to you.
Thanks, Nikita. So just to quickly take you through the empty files, which I had told you all about earlier. So this is the one where we're going to be putting in all the examples of evaluation mechanisms that other teams or groups are using. And so this is this will be your go-to file to get some inspiration, of what other folks around you all are doing, and just get those creative juices flowing, Um, then you have the skills and knowledge support. So this is going to be your Excel sheet, your database, where you're going to have a list of all your participants, their sort of contact channels, and basically skills that they can help you out with, or skills that they need help with. I mean, you all included. Now, how are we going to fill up this database? That's going to be you all who's going to fill that up. I forgot to take you all through that. So we have basically we have a Google form that we've set up, and you'll find that in the README file. Maybe at some point of time we could even share that over email with all of y'all. But we've got a Google form that we've put together, and I'm going to take you all through this form. It's just super simple. It's not going to take you all more than like a minute, I guess. Literally, name, email, 3 skills, knowledge areas that you can help people with. So you just sort of put them down over here. And if in case you're looking for certain help to something, you'll just put it down over here, you'll submit it, and voila, it's all going to be over here. So yeah, we're hoping to have this filled as soon as possible, and it's just going to be a good resource for all of us to sort of collaborate and get help. And the last file, the FAQs, which is also an empty one, but be sure to visit it like in a couple of weeks, and we're going to start compiling all the questions that come out of the webinars, that come out of all the comments that I leave over here. And yeah, this should be a go-to file as well. With that, I think I have covered everything, and maybe we can open up to some questions now. Hello, is everyone still there?
Yeah. So I think anybody who has a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. In case you have trouble unmuting, just ask us and we'll make sure to do that. We're also welcoming comments and suggestions. We had a few really good ones in the first webinar as well. So, feel free to add whatever thoughts you have.
Abrar, do you want to touch on the Google Drive that we'll be creating for everyone, the folder?
Oh yes. So we're going to be creating a folder right within this toolkit, within which we're going to have a folder for each team, and that's essentially your personal space. Yeah, I mean that's where you throw in all your thoughts, evaluation related, and we are hoping y'all throw in the worksheets as well, filled by y'all, so that kind of helps us out as well. But yeah, that's going to be your folder wherein everything evaluation related, you'll just sort of put files there, you'll put references there, and just sort of take ownership of it. Yeah, and yeah, hopefully that could allow us to gather a bunch of resources evaluation related. And the thing is, it helps us also a lot, because it helps us get a clearer idea of firstly what you all are trying to communicate, and once we get a better idea of that, it also helps us build evaluation sort of what Akshay had spoken about earlier, right? Evaluation, festival evaluation methodologies. So it helps us build those which are very much in tune with what the festival has to offer, right? So I mean, it's like we both get a lot of help out of your sort of thinking through this entire self-evaluation sort of process, And yeah, we'll share these folders with you soon as well, maybe next week, I guess.
So, so just to answer your question, I don't know. So the database which you saw in terms of the skills, that is accessible to everyone, and it's common for everyone. And as Nikita mentioned, the parent folder, we'd actually like if everybody uses the same folder, comments on the same docs, and that's why you're using Google Doc rather than sending you guys a PDF or a Microsoft Word document. Is that we want it to happen on a single doc that everybody can access. I hope that answers your question, or did you mean something else? Okay, cool. Yeah, any other questions? Come on, guys, we can't have explained it so well. Either y'all haven't understood anything, or okay, looks like we did explain really well. Ah, no, there we go. No question. Oh, okay, we were fairly clear.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen as of now, so that I just get to look at
Okay,
everything else. Yeah.
super.
So
Yes,
should we do
you.
the questions through the chat or
No, you
No,
can just.
please, just you can just tell us.
okay? There was a lot of information. Everything is pretty clear. I think that I read to need everything again. And just a quick question. I think that we are doing, my team and me, we're doing the workshop for different target audiences. So we should fill these documents as many times as, for example, if I'm working with children and women, should I do twice this shelf evaluation document or?
No, I mean,
I mean, if you feel,
go ahead, Akshay.
no, Abrar, you answer. It's fine.
So no, I mean the idea was to sort of have if you have 5 different kinds of target audiences, you sort of put them together in the same worksheet, right? Because you are creating something that has to appeal to all 5 of them. So you don't want to look at it as 5 different problems that you're solving, but it's all going to be together in one. And so basically, then we start thinking about the generic learning outcomes and the change you're trying to create or how you're going to evaluate it. It's all going to be for all those 5 people, right? So, I mean, ideally, you want to put them together in one place and start thinking about them as one unit rather than,
Perfect, thank you.
hopefully that
And
answers it.
Yeah. Unless since it's a workshop and children and women aren't attending at the same time, and you're going to be creating, unless the content is going to be really different. If the content is going to be the same for the workshops, then, like Abrar said, it makes sense to kind of try and do it all in one worksheet.
right, thank you. And also, so there is a part that we have to fill before going to the festival, and another part that we should do it after, right?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yes, we have to fill some documents before start the whole story thing of the space before going to India. Like we have to think how we are going to evaluate the workshop or whatever
Okay, yeah.
after.
So
And after we have to feel something else with what did we see during our workshop, right? I don't know if I'm explaining.
yeah. So I think the idea is that in the worksheet or in that process, there is a how are you going to measure this, right? And in some cases, that like with the stickers, that might just be noting down the numbers and taking a few pictures and then giving that to us to process, along with some notes on the conversations that happened. Or they might choose to make short videos of those. So depending on how you're going to be documenting what you measure, then you should share that with us after the festival is done.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And just to add to that, I mean, that's something that we're going to be working through with you all, and your curator is going to be working through with you all along the way, right? So, I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, I have to do this, after the festival. It's just going to happen. Like, let's just take it step by step.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think there were a few people who have a couple of doubts regarding the folders. So the self-evaluation toolkit that you see, that is the parent folder, and then there'll be a sub folder within that, which will be say all teams, and then there'll be a folder for every participant individually, where you could duplicate the worksheet, you could add in any presentation, any photographs, anything, any feedback you have, any data that you could provide. So that will be like your personal workspace. and your personal working ground regarding evaluation. So just thought that I'll clarify that. I hope I've answered your question, Ran and Deshna.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Great.
Okay. Guys, any more questions? If not, I think maybe we can call it a day, but we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes in case there are any questions.
So yeah, so hello, hi, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hi. So is there something, what is it that we're required to do, the immediate form or something are we supposed to send in? Because we joined in like 5 minutes late and we're sorry about that. We're wondering
No,
if we
no, it's fine.
missed out on something.
No, so there isn't any immediate requirement per se. We're in July now. The festival is in November. So what we're expecting is that many of the teams you guys are, slowly kind of ramping up activity on thinking through your pieces. So what we want to happen right now is that you take these guidelines and the worksheet into consideration as you start, pulling your idea apart and putting it back together in detail, that this becomes an important consideration. And in the process of doing that, you're having discussions with your curator or with us if you get stuck. And also, sometimes some of you are working alone. It's difficult sometimes. So, start having conversations around this, and we just want you guys to start thinking about this. And if the worksheet is useful to do that, fill it out, share it with us. Then we can have a quick chat, either over email if that does the trick, or even get on a call if you guys need it. So that is it's not an immediate next step except to start taking this into consideration, more than anything else.
Great, thank you.
Just something that Nikita had mentioned in a previous one of the previous webinars was that like I mentioned in the beginning, we're working on the festival evaluation plan. If some or if all of you start sharing your ideas for self evaluation with us, that will really help us align what we're doing for festival evaluation with what's happening at each project. So if everybody's planning on interviewing the audience, we're a little careful on not overdoing it as well, that kind of thing. And also to kind of make sure that there is everything kind of fits together as much as we can. So we really urge you to come September, at least by September, share your worksheets back. If you do it sooner, it helps us to plan the overall festival evaluation also.
Yeah. In terms of the skills one can offer, I wanted a little bit of clarity um, on what are you looking for, or is it specific to this evaluation exercise, or what is it about?
So actually, the idea of building this sort of a Skillshare document came from Abrar's experience at Story of Light. That even though everybody was in the residency together, sometimes you needed help with something and you didn't know who had that skill. So this is sort of this Skillshare document is the first step in building our community of the team and the participants with each other. So, now, we've got a few people who are like actual full-on scientists or philosophers, and you might be exploring an idea that you're not familiar with in a deep way. They can help you kind of work through that, and it creates this opportunity for cross-pollination of skills and knowledge. So it's not for evaluation at all. It's for the larger community of participants.
Got it. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So an example to that, Pushpanjali, would be, say for example, if I had to fill in that document, so I could say that I can help with assessment, I can help with programming, and I can help with any carpentry work that somebody may need to do. So those could be some of the skills that I have to offer. And then you could, so list the similar skills for your piece as well, that I need help with, say, technical aspects, or I need help with programming. So then that could be something that you could reach out for.
Thank you. This was really good. I
Well,
really appreciated the last part of what kind of resources I'm using and what is my environmental impact, because I've sometimes seen performance pieces, like one kind of an agenda is taking place, but at the same time there's another thing happening, like, which is quite a paradox. So
Yes.
this is very nice to not just philosophically or intellectually talk about things, but actually experientially be someone who does those things. So yeah.
Thank you for including that.
thank you. We're at the 1 hour mark. If you guys have questions, of course, you have our email addresses. It's in the README, and you have access. Once you ask for access, you'll have commenting rights. So you can ask your questions there. And I'm sure questions will come up in a week, 2 weeks once you engage with the documents. Thank you so much for joining us. Expect an email, sometime next week, where we'll share all these links and, a link to the recorded webinar as well. So you can go back and listen to either Abrar, Niketa, or me blabbering on. And so you guys, I hope you guys have a great weekend. And thanks again for joining. Um, we've got only 5 minutes left, but because we started 7 minutes later, and I kept pausing because of all the noise around me, I hope we can go on till 5:10. We've got about 15 minutes for questions, comments, suggestions. So I just like to throw the floor open. Niketa, could you unmute everyone?
Yes, just give me a second.
So if you're in a noisy environment, please mute yourself. The floor is open for questions, guys.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, Georgia.
Hi, this is more of a technical question, but I think when it comes to adding the self-evaluation and peer toolkit to your own drive, there's something off in the settings. I can't actually get it into my own drive.
I really can't hear what you're saying. It might be an idea for everybody, but the one person speaking.
Niketa, maybe if you could mute everyone, and then Georgia can unmute herself, whoever was asking the question can unmute them.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, please go ahead, Georgia.
Excellent. This is just a quick question about, it's more of a technical question than anything. With the self-evaluation and peer review toolkit in Google Drive, it looks like the settings are set so that it's hard to get it in your own drive.
Okay. I think if you can click on download, it should be able to download on your local drive.
Okay. Thank you.
So Georgia, you'll be able to download it as either a Word document or a PDF. You should be able. There should be a thing there saying "Add to my drive." But thanks for bringing this up. Just another point that I want to make is that if everybody, when you've opened the documents, you can probably see it says view only. If you could just click on the view only and request edit access. I'm managing the document, so I'll get an email, so that I know what email addresses you're using with Google Drive, and then we'll start giving everyone commenting access, and I think a lot of that kind of stuff will get easier based on that. It's a bit arduous, but just bear with us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right. So go on. Any more questions, guys? Sorry, I'm not sure if everybody can hear me, but are there any more questions? Tia, you started messaging something about adding to the drive, or do you have a question?
Hi everyone. Yeah, so basically if you go on the Google Drive on the bit that says drop down menu, you'll get a little link that allows you to add Drive and you can move it to wherever.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No. I mean, I can see you, but I can't hear you, and I can't lip read, so yeah, I know. Maybe you just put your question in the chat, if that's possible. And this to try. The thing is that there isn't really a need for version control because besides the self-evaluation sheet, everybody can only comment. I think the evaluation team is the only one that will be given editing rights. So we don't actually want to create multiple copies of documents except the self-evaluation worksheet. And what we'll be doing for that, and that's a decision that we're still making, is that oh god, it's noisy around me. The decision that we're still making on that is that we will be making folders for each of the teams, and you can start putting your files around evaluation into that. So those could be documents, those could be pictures, scans of tissue papers where you've made notes, what have you. So each team would get their own folder for that. But these main documents in the evaluation folder, you wouldn't need to do version control. That was a very long-winded answer for that. Sorry. Yeah, so Vivek and I don't know what the first name was, but I think the whole bit about evaluation is a conversation we've also had with all the curators, and so they are also quite well equipped to answer your questions, and we are definitely available on email. You can also just comment. If there's a specific bit that you have a question about, sometimes it helps to ask the question publicly, because then everybody can benefit from the answer. So if you ask for edit access, we will give you commenting rights, and then you can ask the question publicly on those documents. So any other questions? Yes, that seems okay. Thank you. That's fine. Okay, super, Manuel. The curators, some of them may not be on the call today, but they are very, very aware of the whole evaluation piece. we walked them through it and got their feedback a couple of weeks ago. So, please feel free to ask them some questions as well. And in case they're not able to answer it, they'll get back to us and, so forth. But I really urge everyone to request edit access and ask your questions on the document itself. Honestly, I feel like there'll be so much learning to be had that way. Where we are all learning together and we're not replicating, effort there. Yeah, any other questions or comments or suggestions? We had some great ones in the morning as well, so I'd love to hear from you guys. Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. I guess there aren't any questions. Just to inform you guys, the team, the evaluation team, we're recording all of these. Webinars, and we'll make a composite video and upload that on YouTube. And so you'll, just rest assured you'll get an email, middle of next week with some follow-up links and instructions and things like that. So I think we'll be good to go from there.
This is the 6 documents that we were talking about. This is the folder. And yeah, I mean, it's all here. So you'll have the link now. I mean, feel free to sort of go through it in more detail, read through all of them. And yeah, I think we are good to go. Any questions? I mean, what we could probably do now is, if you all have any questions, you can just ask, and me, Akshay, and Nikita, we can all just sort of pitch in and try to answer them.
So I've unmuted everybody's mic, so please feel free to ask questions and.
All right, I have a question. So I may have missed this, but through what timeline are we looking at evaluating these 6 forms? I mean, what us to have already answered before the festival, and then which ones do we go back to as an afterthought?
So basically, I think the way we're doing evaluation is to be able to. The idea is that we should be able to use these documents as a guiding, as a sort of a North Star, help you guide the process of what you're thinking about in terms of designing the installation itself. So, for example, in the case of your installation, Rucha, what we're looking at essentially is, while people are doing this whole business with the stickers, if that's what we do in the end, what we're able to do during the festival is also record, numbers of how many people did yes, no, if those posters are changing, or if we're able to keep those spaces where people are putting the stickers aside for future reference, so that if you can do that way, so thinking through that, but also when you guys are manning that installation, either you do it or we work with some volunteers at some points in the day to also be able to ask some people questions around what they were thinking, what they were feeling when they maybe stuck with the same answer when they didn't do that. And then for you to be able to document some of that and share it with us. So, I mean, that's a good question, because I think we didn't really think about documentation. So, Abrar, I think maybe we can add a small section on that, post-festival documentation.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes some sense. I'm going to go ahead and sort of add that in the self-evaluation sort of guidelines. And we can sort of think that through as well.
Yes. And to add to that, Rucha, so we're looking at having these documents ready and filled in by you. So your data fills in into the entire festival evaluation plan, and it also helps the evaluation team design that experience of evaluation. So, for example, in your case, it is about creating that space and that wall. So we'll need these filled in, say about a month and a half before the festival begins, to have an idea of what we need to start looking at and how do we need to look at the evaluation, what technologies will be involved. And then of course you can keep revisiting and making it finalized closer to the festival. But having sort of a finalized first draft, say by the or mid-September actually, would actually help the evaluation team design that experience of evaluation better. So I hope we've answered your question now.
Sure, yeah, this does answer my questions. And I guess if there's anything else, I'll just write to any of you guys.
Yes, yes. And we'll also, Akshay, I think we'll include that sort of timeline by when we want the participants to have what ready and shared with the evaluation team. So maybe we could have a document listing the timeline for them.
Yeah.
And in that case, I could maybe create an empty folder in this folder wherein, participants can put back their sort of worksheets, and we can just have one sort of common place to consolidate all of that and not just have, individual links being sent or emails being sent. So maybe that could also be useful.
So, but I just want to jump in and just also add that, this might feel slightly we don't want you guys to be feeling like this is like homework or work. So, for us, what's important, and that's why, the curators are going to be able to really help you with this is, really it's about just thinking through through what you're presenting in a way with a framework, and then just putting your thoughts on this and sharing it with us, so I just don't want this to feel like an assignment, and that you're doing it, so people are saying it's far from seeming like work. That's good. So, but, just to be, we just want you guys to also enjoy this process. And so it's actually a lot about discussion and, working within the team and thinking through that. Thinking through your team. Some of y'all are working on this individually. So, feel free to reach out to your curators if you want a third point of view to bounce ideas off of. Abrar, Niketa and I are available, and you can drop us a line. So we can really do that. And I guess, Abrar, the other thing to add is our email addresses.
Yeah, exactly. We're just going to mention that. In the README, I've put our bios, but I'm just going to add our email addresses over there as well.
Yeah. So I think that I just wanted to add that. Okay, cool. Any other questions? I think, Abrar, you can stop sharing your screen also. I think it's okay. Unless somebody has a question, then.
Yeah, I do have something. This is Hinal. So first of all, I want to say just a big thank you to the evaluation team for the work you've done on this. It's really clear, and I'm excited for how this structure and this process can help everybody achieve clarity and impact for the most people through their participation in this project. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also very excited about this skills and knowledge sharing and the potential of that. I think that can be really great if if people participate in that. One thing I found when I've done similar things to this in the past is that, as well as asking participants, such as those of us on this call, to say 3 areas of skills that we have that we would be willing to teach or to share or to help people with, to also maybe set up 3 things that we would like help with, to not just say the skills we have, but maybe our areas of need or areas that we would like help with.
Super.
And then you can come to it either with things that with skills that you want to share, or things that you want to learn, or some of both. And, that just provides another way for people to be able to offer someone who might not think that they have a particular skill in something. When they hear somebody, they have a need for something, they say, well, I can help with that. And it's just another way, I think, that can potentially foster more collaboration between artists and other people involved in the story of space.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So if I can suggest to at least the few of you who are on the call, can you hold off for, maybe till the end of the day today? And I think, the three of us will go through the form again. We already had ideas, of editing the Skillshare form. And I think the suggestion is just great. I think we'll definitely, add that bit to the form. And so I would just ask you guys to, hold till the end of the day or over the weekend to do that. And we will kind of, edit the form so that you all are able to put all the new information in as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for being open to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions are extremely welcome. As Abrar said, we're making this up as we go and we're learning. I think Niketa is probably the only one who has any experience with evaluation. So, and I mean, this is kind of also unprecedented, in the way that for a festival of this sort to be evaluated in an open way like this and in a participatory way is new. And so we're really looking forward to your comments. So, if you haven't already, because I think I don't get the notifications, Abrar does, please, make sure that you ask for edit access on all the documents, and we will share commenting access. We're going to sort of reserve editing access with only the team working on the evaluation, but we really want you guys to start having discussions around some of this text, when you have your own time and space to consume it and to kind of work with it a bit. So again, sorry, questions, comments, suggestions?
Hey, can I speak? This is Deepthi. I raised my hand, but
yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
One thing I want to know is, at 50, am I like the oldest participant in this entire festival?
we weren't asking people their ages, so we don't really. It never even occurred to us to ask that question, actually, right, Rahul?
I'm curious.
I guess we'll find out during the residency, Deepthi. I don't know. What was your experience last time?
The process is, I think
Deepthi,
I am.
you're the youngest of us present, I must say.
I think I am. I may be the youngest in terms of my expertise.
No,
skills,
I think you're the youngest in
stuff
terms
I'm
of how you're
hearing,
looking
and
at it, your sense of wonder and the amount of sort of passion you have towards. I mean it. I really mean it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have
I think a
an
lot of people need to
absolute
catch up.
wide-eyed sense of wonder at everything that's
Exactly.
going on.
Yeah.
It's because I'm 50 and I'm hearing these amazing minds and processes and thoughts and projects coming out. It's like, wow, man, amazing. Yeah. So the question, I actually came to ask a question, which is, and I may have missed this as well. The person who spoke before me, I can't remember her name, she said, I may have missed this part and you could have spoken about it. Is there going to be, I guess, help or support from the same orientation of looking at processes and evaluations and how that can be set up? Like with my project, I would want to understand what would be the best way to evaluate what its impact is, not what its impact is on a viewer, not just not just evaluate its outcome, but I feel like I need the tools of evaluation itself to be thought out. Because what I'm doing with the project, it's more to do with it's not heavy on a learning orientation. I'm not looking to like teach quote unquote. It's more about those to imagined worlds, right? And how would you look to measure something like that? How would you look to measure the impact of that?
So two kind of parts to the answer. I think one is just to your question about support. I don't know who's curating, who's the curator.
I'm with her.
Rahul. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So, before we did this, presentation and webinar with the participants, we've talked all the curation circle through it. And certainly Rahul will be able to help you think through these things. Abrar will have added the email addresses. We're available as well for, getting on a quick call and chatting with you about that. So that's the first part in terms of support. In
Hi,
answering,
Akshay.
yeah.
Hello.
Sorry. Yeah, Rucha,
Hi,
can I just
I'm
answer?
so sorry, but I'm going to. I just have to leave, and I
Sure.
needed to say bye to you guys. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll listen to this on the recording. Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Thanks. Cheers. The second part is just how would you evaluate something like that, and how would you measure it? I think that's a really good question, and I think we should really unpack this idea of measurement. Because I feel like how do you know if you've had impact, right? One is let's think about asking, there's a qualitative aspect to it, and that might actually be say that if 1,000 people, are consuming your piece, for want of a better phrase, because I don't fully know what the piece is, but if 1,000 people are consuming it, you speak to 20 of them and have a really nice conversation. That's almost saying like, hey, let me call for a couple of coffees, let's sit down and have a chat. With an audience member who walks through. With the kids, we can actually think of, sitting them down in an area around your piece and having this kind of an interactive session for you to really understand that, as the person who's really thought through that piece in detail, very deeply about it, has iterated it over all these months. There are questions that you will be able to ask and get a sense of things really. And then, if you're able to document that through pictures, through, words, through video, all of them together, or, maybe a fourth kind of format, then, that is, what we kind of bring in. For us, it's really important, not just the documentation and the evaluation at the end. That's certainly important. But for us, just the fact of sharing the learning outcomes, right? And you thinking through, does this communicate? How can this communicate better? How can this evoke emotion? How can this evoke questions, right? Is for us a massive step forward, because what we're doing is we're setting ourselves up for success. And that is, what a lot of the self-evaluation, work is about. In terms of quantitative, so-called measurement, and I'm doing air quotes, I think for a lot of pieces, there may actually not be something you can directly measure, but sometimes you can come up with a proxy.
Yeah, so this is exactly what my question is. That's exactly the point at which I'm asking the question, because it's about translating something that's happening on a, not necessarily a material level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Communication alone, there's many aspects of it.
Yeah.
So to add to what Akshay has said, and Deepti, great question there. So when we look at evaluation, we're constantly trying to see about what is the difference between the starting state of the audience and the ending state of the audience.
Right.
and what is that change that has happened
Right.
between that starting and that ending stage. So
Yeah.
the more that we look at, say an installation, so the ideal evaluation would think of how can I capture that starting stage, that starting state. It could be a sort of a festival-wide starting state that we could capture as an evaluation team, or we could also break it down with the curators to capture it with the participants, that is you yourself. So you can also help us add what is that starting state that you can help capture, and if at all in your installation or through that installation. And then we'll look at how that ending state can be captured. So at this point in time, the how is not necessarily a question that we need answered immediately, but it is that change that you want to create between that starting and ending. And what would you like that starting state and end state to be like?
Sure. Nice.
So I hope we've answered your question.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to know how important it was to be able to measure that. Like, is that something that we need to be? Well, you've answered my questions.
Super. Yeah, well,
Thank you.